Hello there, Lord Coach KB here. So I want to talk about Hwei, this new champion. He has a very low win rate across all of the regions, approximately around 40%, right? So, he's not bad at all. Here are some harsh truths. He's not bad at all, just people are bad at playing the champion, and that's it. So, generally speaking, if you played mages before, like Zeke, Serat, what have you, you will feel very familiar to this champion. In fact, like, his abilities are not even hard. Now this is gonna hurt some of the Hwei's players' ego, but the champion itself is not that hard. It's just like you gotta read a lot of his abilities, practice to them out, know how to use them in the correct order, be creative about them, of course, right? And that's it, because the champion is very overbuffed. As we can see, the champion is quite overbuffed, and you can play him definitely in every single lane except maybe jungle. Not his E is specifically buffed into jungle monsters. In the jungle I don't have an opinion about Hwei, but I don't suppose he should be good in the jungle. Let's talk a little bit about the identity of the champion, where he's mainly a mage and a secondary supportive champion. While also your goal, generally speaking, is scaling. You can also dominate the lane if you play correctly, but it's totally fine if you're just scaling. You pretty much want to play for team fights as much as possible, while also at level 6 you unlock your ultimate, which allows you to go for very strong skirmishes. Okay, so let's start presenting the champion itself. He's passive. Hwei damaging abilities mark an enemy's hit for 4 seconds. Damaging them with a different ability consumes the mark to create an explosion underneath them, right? Or beneath them, my bad. Dealing 35 up to 180 damage based on level, plus a 30% AP ratio, right? And it procs, of course, after 0 to 85 seconds. So, just to be clear, the same champion everyone can take the same amount of AoE damage from each of these champions. So for example, this does stack. That's what I want to explain. Like, this passive does stack. So for example, if I press, I don't know, like E, then I press QE, all of them gonna be damaged quite heavily, right? Which usually means that you'll be able to actually get a lot of AoE damage while out of your passive effect, while it's also useful even in lane because it does provide you a bit more damage. Very similar to a brand passive. That's why I said, like, if you played mages before, this champion gonna feel to be very similar. And let's start explaining his Q and all of his abilities overall. So Q is the generic ability we'll start in lane with, right? So what does Q allow you? Q starts, right? Q and Q, right? We can call it QQ, right? So QQ does deal HP based damage. Well, also it has a not too high flat damage, but it does HP based damage. Well, notably, its cooldown is not too long. And the interesting thing about Q is, right, that it has there's like an indicator in here, and there is like a circle, right? And both of these, oh, the fucking scatter scrap thanks it. So both of these can damage the enemy champions, right? And it stops, of course, at the first target. It does AoE damage. But the notable thing about this Q is that you can Q flash to surprise people, right? And it's kind of hard to react to the base Q right now because it's actually way faster. Its cast is so quick, actually. Like, look how quick this ability is. It's very hard to sidestep it after the cast time buffs. Okay, pretty much we explained Q. What's Q about? Great into HP stacking champs. Good poking tool in lane, of course. You can bounce it off of minions as well, of course, into the enemy champions. So even if they are behind minion cover, it shouldn't be a concern because very easily you can bounce it off. It's especially useful into like melee champs that have to last it, because for example, here is the enemy Katarina behind this minion. You Q it and it will bounce to the enemy Katarina anyways, so like XD we hit you anyways. So they'll have difficult times to, of course, like play into this. But again, you don't necessarily wanna, though, like not into every single melee champs you wanna Q start. In fact, Katarina might be even a bad example of it. You don't always have to like Q start. It's not the most oppressive thing you can go for, in my own opinion. Just because like Q start actually does cost lots of mana, and the issue is, like, compared to your other abilities, your other abilities are way cheaper, right? So we're gonna talk about matchup specifics, but let's go through the abilities. First of all, right? So QW, what does QW do? It does 145 damage, right? But the important thing to watch out for with your W, that is actually very long range, so you can actually reveal the enemy champions if they are around. Based on what though? Well, what if you don't have first strike up or comet? You still gonna get Liandry damage, for example 809 damage. 8006, my bad. And so we can soon see that the damage of Liandry will change, right? It doesn't make the sound effect when I hit my W, but the notable thing is that you actually do get damage value out of your Ludens, out of your Liandry, what have you. So even though you don't have comet or first strike per moment off, it will still actually reveal that some people are around that area. By flickering this Liandry, you'll see that it does actually show a damage difference, so you'll know that people are there. Okay. From the other hand, this W actually does more damage to isolated champions, right? It means that they will take more damage, right? And so the important thing to understand about this also works on immobilizations, but slows are not immobilizing effects. They are not. So don't rely on slows too much. But also notably, the damage of it scales quite nicely up, right? It quite nicely scales up, right? That's like pretty much it. The only thing about this ability, it doesn't reveal like bushes, right? Like it just simply doesn't reveal bushes compared to like Isserat W, right? But it's very similar to Isserat W, because Isserat W similarly does AoE, similarly does like more damage in the middle, but this has different specifications. This needs isolation or CC. Now, E ability. This is very similar to a Rumble Ult, or I would say a Serat Q. We are back to Serat again, because it's similar to Serat. That's why I always say, like, if you played mages before, this champion will feel to be very familiar. So, easy. Now, E flash is not necessarily a thing. As we can visually see, like, this just doesn't reach, right? And even if I E flash, it just doesn't work. Like, you can't E flash. After I don't know why would you really E-flash though, but you can't. You can't. Now, one of the notable things, this is like very bad to poke with. Like people think that this is a large amount of AO ability and I want to like level 1 poke my opponent with. This ability is not too accurate because its purpose is really wave clearing at most. But also like you're gonna use it with the combination of something, not standalone by itself. So what's the difference even between using E and your other abilities? So we can see that the eruption deals 89 damage, right? Enemies in the lava area are dealt 85 damage, magic damage per second, and are slowed by 30%, so it does apply slow compared to the other abilities. Each lava pool lasts 2.5 seconds. So this actually does have a great amount of DPS. Because this ability does more damage as an upfront ability when people are higher on HP than your other ability, your W, perhaps even your Q. Now, with some exceptions, of course, if people have a lot of HP, or B option, they have a lot of mobility, so they will get out of your E in no time, then again, like supposed to be, your Q supposed to actually deal more damage, but DPS wise E has more. It's just like if they have insane amount of HP, I assume like Devastating Fire can out damage it, but once you have Liandry, really easily, like Morton Fissure just out DPS is your Q. It's just like the only issue, like E is a bit of a bait, because often the first part doesn't hit, because its cast is way more delayed than your Qs, and the other issue is just like very simple, people will walk out of it, so often your Q will deal more damage just because either E doesn't hit, so people just won't sit inside of your E, right? Or they will dash out of it. Okay, let's move on from all of these abilities. W, so these are the subject serenity, so these are the more so defensive, peeling, supportive abilities. So let's start from the Q ability itself. The Hwei paints a current of swift waters in a line for 4 seconds. That grants 22% bonus mobility. This does have a low AP scaling, 0.02 AP scaling, and move speed to himself and allied champions, right? Now, this doesn't really have too many tricks into it. This is basically the type of thing you use A if you wanna engage, B if you want to disengage, and sometimes C you wanna like sort of like sidestep, outplay your opponent, space your opponent, for example. I don't know, like this could be like your spacing ability, right? As per moment, like you use this to space, you use your other ability, of course, and so sort of the sort of your W will give you better spacing power, mobility, engage for your jungle. This engage does actually matter quite a lot. For example, if you make a good path for your jungle, in certain situations this will really easily allow him to get an engage, because that 22% mobility is quite a lot. Like I only have 330 speed and I get 72, right? And that often will allow many junglers to gank way more smoothly if they really need that extra mobility, or just like it's just mobility, you know. Mobility can be used in many ways. Back to subject serenity. Pool of reflection. Allies receive only 50% of the shield. Well, also notably, you get instant shield right now. It's not delayed as before. You get an instant shield, and this shield does actually ramp up. Now, this shield is not the best at countering an upfront like poke, like a Sirat Q, because yes, you can like W it, but the issue is this shield is stacking up, right? So you get the shield, you get an upfront shield 74, then you get 149 shield. It's increased to up to 149, right? And so is the thing. It's good into pokes though. Like into pokes like Brand, it will be always great, right? It will be always great, but it's something that's stacking up, so you should also ping your teammates to walk into it, because probably they won't know what's this ability about, if they even get a shield or something out of it. So you should ping your teammates, otherwise you just may gonna randomly die. Thing about this ability, again, this ability doesn't like really reveals bushes the same way as Q doesn't really reveals bushes, so that's that. I think that's it for now about the W itself. I think that's like pretty much it. Let's move on to the E ability. Now the E ability, Hwei paints 3 swirling lights that circle him, causing his next 3 attacks or spells deal additional 45 damage, because we have Lianri, but obviously in lane it will deal less, and granting 45 mana on hit. So this is the type of ability you would use to regain somewhat mana. Let's go, mana. And so look at it. This is consistent because only basic attacks can apply or detonate signature of visionary from this ability, right? Total of an additional 134 75 plus 60% melee damage and 48 mana is getting gained, right? Additional damage to minions and monsters from abilities with area effect is reduced by 50%, right? Okay. So we are talking about stealing lights, but for some reason it also shows additional information on other things. See, it's similar to an AMI. It sadly doesn't work on Q. It actually does work on Q. What? Yeah, okay, this works completely like an AMI then. My bad, I guess. My bad, I guess. It actually works completely like an AMI. Attack or spells. My bad. So this is the type of ability you would use into champions where you wanna regain mana, right? You wanna actually regain mana by using your abilities. So this will always positively affect you, like TF's blue card, because it actually does, or as is W, it actually does give him mana. So this will be always a good choice of trade if you can really consistently get all of the steering lights off, while also notably you'll be able to like deal with the enemy champions engage, right? So this is kind of good into Galio as a good example. Galio, because he does have like some magic damage reduction from his W. If he presses W to counter your spells, usually they do it so they take less damage. Well, also notably he usually builds him more, and he has a magic damage shield from his W. So often doing some, if you want to regain mana, full mana, I wouldn't really recommend it. It's often like if you step up to Galio, you wanna press WE. I'm gonna slow it down for you. WE, very slow. I'm gonna type it down. W plus, not minus, plus E, right? So you W plus E, we got it. Then we want to press E, but in here you got to be very quick. E and Q, right? And then it will cancel his dash, right? So it does apply a knockdown effect. So let's do it quick this time. So remember the order, guys. Very simple. WE, Q, fuck, I messed it up already. W, E, E, Q, right? You can weave in an auto attack in between as well, right? W, V, Q, like that. Oh fuck, I'm messing it up. Holy fuck, the muscle memory. Fuck, W, E, E, Q. Fuck, and now I missed. This is funny. Try to not mess up challenge this time. So, holy, this is hard to actually muscle memorize for some reason. This champion is a bit weird. So again, you're gonna press E, E, Q, works, right? Into Galio specifically, as a matchup example. Let's move on. We talked about all of these abilities in general, and I will also talk about the skill floor, of course, of the abilities themselves. But first of all, we wanna clear out how the abilities themselves work. E, Torment. So this does apply Flee. Flee also cancels dashes, by the way. So in case you didn't know it, it does cancel dashes. While also the duration doesn't go up with points, but the duration of your W's route it does. So let's talk about Flee itself. It's very simple. Hwei launches a terrifying face. Wow, that's spooky, yeah, fuck. That's spooky. Now, with E, you can't really... Oh, you can actually flash. Okay, so you can Q flash. That's amazing. So you can actually Q flash. Then throw in your rest of your combos, such as your ult and whatnot. So you can do stuff like, you know, you press your E, press your Q, right? Let's get it off. E, Q, flash, ult. Right? And once people are feared, they can't even flash away. So again, E, Q, ult, right? Surprising combo. Now, W. Let's go to W itself. Hwei paints an abyssal eye at the target location that grants vision. We can see stuff. Looking onto the nearest enemy champion and launches a homing missile at them, rooting them. So again, W also allows you to go for a consistent ult hit. So generally speaking, you need to set up your ult. Now it doesn't insta-proc though. That's the notable thing about his W. It doesn't insta-proc, right? So it has some travel duration. It has to like arm first, right? And then once it's armed, it will insta go off, right? So for example, I do this. Champion walks into it, now it's armed, now it will insta go inside of it. So this is good. This ability is quite insane actually, and probably the most underrated ability on the champion, just because like the root actually does scale up quite nicely. Like actually, the root does scale up quite nice. Oh, wrong button. The root scales up. Why the hell? Oh, cause it's E. Oh my god, my bad. It's E actually. So the root scales up quite nicely, up to 2 seconds, right? Basically like a Lux Q, right? Let's put a point in R as well, just so. So basically like a Lux Lux Q root when it's maxed out, and it also like provides a nice amount of collapsing opportunity. It doesn't seemingly works against monsters though. So I think this ability is specifically against champions, right? Nearest enemy champion. Yeah, it doesn't work against minions, so don't try to wave clear with this by any chance. Paints a crushing jaw, deal 239 magic damage to enemies, hit, and drags them towards the center, slowing them by 70%, decaying over 125 seconds. So this is also sort of a setup for your AoE damage from your passive, for your AoE abilities in your kit, while also notably it allows you to connect your abilities more smoothly. Soon I will also definitely gonna talk about like how to use them in a combination. Now I wanna just use ult. As you can see, this, let's see if this has like some specific hitbox. Like, does this hit actually? It does hit, so it's quite actually long. Does it hitbox? It does hitbox. It does actually hitbox. It does actually hitbox quite nicely, right? Now, this ability is not the most accurate when you throw it out in a very long distance. So I wouldn't recommend you to just randomly throw it without setting yourself up with a CC. You need to set up for your ult preferably, but let's get into the ability itself. Hwei launches a vision of pure despair that sticks to the enemy champion for 3 seconds. The vision expands over time, applying slow to enemies for 10%, stacking every 0.25 seconds, right? And dealing 25 magic damage per second upon completion. It shatters and deals 378. Ooh, this is a high AP ratio. 378 damage. So, the more your ult slows, the more likely you'll be able to hit your other abilities with ease, because once, like, look at the dummy's speed, right? For example, I ult and it progressively decreases, so it means I'm more likely to hit my W. So you wanna hit your W, you wanna use your W. So look at the dummy speed, 370, right? So you wanna Q W, let's say ult in, right? We're gonna, wrong button, my bad. So you're gonna press Q, and when it says only 110 speed, it's very easy, you know, you ult, it has 100 speed, and at the lowest moment you're gonna press W. They are so slow they can't even walk out of your W, and that will be a consistent execute. Now let's move on with other combinations of abilities that you can use. So this is the first part where I talked about the identity of the champion itself. I talked about, of course, the champion's abilities. Now I want to present how to use the abilities in a combination, because that's the most important thing you actually have to learn about the champion itself. So see you guys in the next part of this video. Soon it will start. Right now I want to talk about specific combinations, especially into matchups. What should you even start with level 1? Should you perma Q start and Q and Q in? How should you play this champion? So Q start is fine. If you do this, you will be fine. You can do this in like any matchups, but now you don't want to start with W. The issue with W is it always does less damage, because people are generally high on HP, so this does actually deal damage, more damage to, of course, to isolated champions or immobilized champs. Enemies take increased damage based on missing health, right? Well, also notably, it's just really all about like the ability is not very accurate, so I wouldn't really like recommend you to honestly go for it. That's my opinion, you know. Then the same way, E-start is just shit. The issue with E-start is it doesn't like it does reduce damage to minions, just to be clear. While also notably, this ability doesn't usually hit, especially into mages, because the issue is that it's like, look, like it's very long range, and usually you will hit the mage with the edge of it, but the issue is they won't sit inside of it, so your E would deal, I assume, the most DPS, but it's like I'm pretty much sure it just doesn't like connect as a whole, right, into the enemy champions, which kind of does suck actually, so I wouldn't ever start with this ability. But let's move on. What could you alternatively level as one start on this champion? You could actually start with your W. Now why would you W start? Now W allows you to get a Nami E that also gives you back mana. But okay, why would you even do this? It says 18 seconds cooldown, right? So if I use it, my W gonna be on a very, very long cooldown, and I won't have the same capabilities to actually poke as often as I would with my Q, so why would you go for it? Now note that yes, your Q does poke, but the issue is it costs a lot of mana, and for example, now okay, W costs a lot of mana as well, Gaby, so what kind of shitty argument is that? Yes, but your E does actually provide you back more mana than you used it for. So it says Hwei paints 3 swirling lights that circle him, causing his next 3 attacks or spells to deal additional magic damage into champions. Now one of the notable things is that it does gain you back mana even if you hit the enemy minions. They don't have to be specifically champions, right? For example, I use E, and look at my mana, it's back, so we can get a positive amount of mana. So in 2 basic attacks we already found the W's mana cost, while notably we get a bit more back, right? So we get 135 in total. Now even though that level 1 you're gonna be full mana anyways, it's not about that you're gonna be full mana anyways. The thing about your W is that you actually can use it, of course, in a flexible way, whichever ability you want to use most likely. And this is consistent, so this will hit no matter what, because these are just basic attacks, right? Like basic attacks are never really missing. And so what this allows you to do is just very simple. Into like melee matchups, This provides the most amount of threat because often melee champs will just last it and cover behind minions, and this can give you the most amount of pressure without losing mana, because like you wanna use more so your mana when you can use multiple rotation of abilities, not when you can only use one rotation of one ability without any type of combinations. So your Q does burn lots of your mana. That's my opinion, even though he got mana buffed. His mana cost less mana, his base mana got buffed, but I'm still not a big fan of perma Q starting. Now, Gaby, what about E-starts? Is there a specific scenario, situation where I E-start? Should I not? Should I not? Let me explain it to you guys. There is a world where you really easily E-start. So let's just explain E-start as well. Reset the game, we are level 1 again. Get our simple item, teleport mid lane, place the non-dummy. E-start. What does E-start allow us to do? We have some options. This has a 15 seconds cooldown, right? All of these abilities have 15 seconds cooldown if I use any of them. And so what do we have here? We have a drag that also slows, right? It does only cost 50 mana, so very similarly to Subject Serenity, it's good to start with because its mana cost is not too high, while also notably it does have pressure. The only thing about Subject Serenity, you have steering lights that are just very consistent, you know, at just poking, right? Those things you cannot miss, but there is a chance you may miss one of these abilities, right? So when should you start with what? Look, in specific matchups, I would recommend you to actually start with your E. Depending on like what does the enemy champion do. For example, into a champ like Tryndamere, you may wanna start crushing Maw, or you can also use Flee. Both of them are efficient at actually cancelling his spin. It just E might be a little more punishing though, but also notably E does overpush the wave a little more than it should in some case scenarios, so you gotta be a bit careful with that. But again, champions that have level 1 pressure, you could start with his ability, or champs that you kinda like wanna cancel their dash. His Q is very useful at that. It's very good at like short trading into those type of champs that want to like dash on you already on level 1, Halo Blades, Echo, these type of things, you know. Then once you kinda like deal with their engage, you can go for like, you can like press your Q, you know, and you can go for some basic attack trades then and just basically like space them really easily. But generally E-start is not the greatest just because of its long cooldown. It doesn't get you back mana. Now E can be punishing if it hits, of course, like it can be definitely punishing, but early on it doesn't have like too long of a slow, while also notably it decays, so you won't get like too many basic attacks in. W can also be really useful, like EW, just because like Gaze of the Abyss, this ability does root, so usually when you're invading you wanna use this ability. You can even initiate, so for example you have a hooking champ but you don't wanna like face tank into a Scion, Echo team, what have you. You can just throw out this W, your Blitzcrank will hook, and basically GG, right? Like for example, let me show you guys. You do this, they are there, it roots a champion, Blitzcrank gonna hook it, and then we can engage. So you can actually sort of play for invades with this W ability because it also reveals the enemy champions. And in lane it won't feel to be too awful, just because the root itself allows you to sort of poke the enemy champion, but this is very easy to like sidestep though, because it takes time until this thing arms and goes in, so it's not the best like possible poking tool, right? That's like the really notable thing about this this EW or EE, right? While also the other notable thing I forgot to mention, actually, my bad, I'm gonna go back a bit to the W itself. So the WE itself actually does procure passive, which is a really important thing. Actually, I forgot to mention it to you guys. Now I don't have to go back to level 1 to showcase it. If you press WE, you can procure your own passive. See? You can't actually. Okay, what? I thought you can actually proc it, my bad. Wait, you can? Why is this bugged? Okay, 1, 2, 3. It doesn't actually. Okay, it doesn't. My bad. This is just weird. Now you cannot ultimate start, so there is no reason to mention it, but Um, okay, I pretty much explained level 1 what to start with and when what to start with. Now let's go to combos themselves. I wanna start about specific combinations right now. So, um, let's just talk about some basic combos. For example, you can do different type of things on the way. One of the more generic combos would be something like this. So remember the order E, E, or E plus C. Does that help? E plus C. Does that help you guys? Then, then you're gonna do what? You're gonna press no E plus Q. My bad. But you can E plus C as well. Like both of them are fine actually. You can E plus C. It doesn't like if Q is a bit more consistent, but both of them can work. Um, then we go from E plus Q. We go to ult, and then we go to ult, right? And we can really easily go Q to what? W. Now, why would you do this in a specific order? So, let's do it slow, then we're gonna do it fast. Or let's do it fast, and we're gonna do it slow. That's fine, I guess. This would be the fast version of it, right? Now, we don't want to do it this fast, though. You want to delay a bit your W a bit more. So, Q fears, right? Really easily. It's a fast fear. You can even E start and E initiate into ult. That's also again fine, but E didn't work for some reason. So I pressed it. So you wanna like pull them together slow, then you wanna sort of get your ult off, that's fine, but Q is a bit more consistent. Just because it flees and people could actually like sort of dash out of it uh, more smoothly out of your E, because like the thing is your Q is quite fast as well. I'm like E is fine as well, but I feel like there is like a small gap where people like could dash out of it depending on the distance. For example, if the distance is bigger, then people are gonna have more like gaps sort of to like dash flash out of it. So I prefer the fear. But let's just go back to it. So again, E for fear, so you can connect your ult really easily. EQ, right? Then you're gonna ult, Q, W. W only when they're very slow, then it's very consistent, plus they're lower on HP. Ideally, if you wanna like depending on the HP of the enemy champion, you can also like perfectly layer it. The perfect layering would be something like this. Look at this, so we press Q. Alright, then we press wrong button. I fucked it up. So you wanna layer it exactly after the expiration of your ult, so your W will deal way more damage. Like it only matters into champs that have a lot of HP. So before I mess it up, I'm kinda tired right now, guys. So EQ, right? Ult, Q, and W only when it's about to blast. Look, and you got to perfectly layer it, even better than I did it. So on the perfect layering, you got to work on before you get to perfectly layer. It was almost perfectly layered. So after your root, right? After your root, it was almost perfectly layered. So, oh, I messed it up actually. I messed it up. Q, ult, Q. I think this was layered correctly, but it may be a bit early. I think it was a teensy bit early. So on, oh fuck, I messed it up. I think this was layered correctly after the ult. If I'm if I'm not confused there. Let's just do it again to make ourselves sure. Yeah, this was layered after the ult. So you got to know how to perfectly layer it. Um, from the other hand, what other combos can you utilize? For example, your W, generally you want to place it in a bush and you want people to face check into. Now, it's fine to use it as a follow-up tool, but it's not the best at initiate, just because there is like a cast time and it has to arm, so often this won't just hit into many things. Often you want to use it as a following up tool, but I suppose in low elo this will connect. But in higher ranks, I feel like generally speaking, this doesn't hit too easily once people buy boots. So I think that's that. If people are perma stepping, this is very hard to initiate with. In lower ranks, I think it's fine to initiate with. Then of course you're gonna look for another trade with Q or W, depending on your opponent's missing HP. But if you're in a good position to get an E off, I would say you should get an E off for more DPS, just because like your E roots. If you do something like this, right, like you W in, then you press Q, E, and this should provide the most amount of DPS in the duration of the route. So you should do that over Q, but if they are low, I would W to finish them off. Now, should you initiate with Q? Not really, because these are like Q, like with QQ you can initiate as a short trade, but they're not very like initiating oriented spells at most, right? Other combinations. W, this just provides you mobility, same as like, you can initiate with this if your teammates are around, because you can provide shit ton of mobility for you and for your engagers to sort of go in and blast the opponent. So for example, you could do something like this. Very easy. You press W, Q, E, W, ult, and basically you're gonna wipe your opponent. And so basically in here, shield. Now shield is not an initiating tool. You're gonna use it as defensively, of course. But sometimes you can start it if you wanna peel yourself, peel your team. But it's very easy. E again is not usually an initiating tool. Usually I wouldn't initiate with compared to any of your other abilities. Usually your E is your initiating tools. You can initiate with any of these, but you can get more value out of your W if people are face checking, just because it looks longer than the Flee from Green Visage. Then again, one of the generic combos when there are multiple champs around, you want to sort of pull them together to deal as much AoE damage as possible, right? And then just like E ult, Q, E, and preferably you should have some type of follow-up DPS, and then you'll be able to do shit ton of damage, as you can numerically see. So if you have a Jarvan or something, this is a very great combo, because you're gonna Cataclysm, ult, you're gonna get your AoE off, but if you can finish them off with W, of course just W, don't bother to E. And that's gonna provide you an insane amount of damage. Now what else is there to talk about? I think pretty much we covered everything. I don't suppose there is anything else in here to talk about. I mean, don't know. I mean, if people, of course, like depends on the situation. You could also like after your initiate, like you could use like in so many creative ways your abilities. That there could be also always like a niche situation where you use your abilities differently depending on the cause. So like I think it's just there's like such a high skill floor, and it's so matchup dependent that like I explain like most of the things at most to you guys, but there will be some specific situations like you gotta think as well in your own game of how to use when to use your abilities correctly, depending on what does your opponent have, right? So it's like severely dependent, on like how the enemy champion functions, um because like some abilities are like better at defending yourself than others. For example, your W is a projectile, but you can place it behind you, right? So that's a good thing. You can place it behind you. So for example, if a Yasuo is closing up to you with easy through minions, you probably don't want to Q because you're gonna wind wall it. You wanna place a W behind you, and that's gonna be a way of dealing with his engage. Or you can press EE. That's also totally fine, and this cannot be wind walled, right? So of course there will be some matchup specific things you should watch out for. Like generally speaking, yes, you should press EQ to cancel dashes. So you can like actually like turn on your opponent really easily, canceling their engage like in Irelia or whatnot, or stuff like that, of course. But into Yasuo, like it's a specific matchup where you don't want to like Q because he has W, of course, to counter it, so he still gets to engage on you. So you want to use something else. But again, like many things, you're just gonna like figure it out on your own because again, like this video would be very very long if I would go through like all of the like specific matchups and matchup specifics and whatnot. I just wanted to open up your eyes, guys. I just wanted to like just generally like opens up some new thinking patterns on the champion, explaining his builds and runes and whatnot. Now I'm kinda tired, so all I'm gonna say, you can just copy paste these runes at most. You can take approach velocity. I would say it's not the best. Probably you should take Cosmic Insight, or you can go Combat Scorch in early game oriented matchups. But I'm gonna be a bit lazy right now on the builds because I really want to sleep very soon. Just like a final advice, I usually didn't even wanted to like make a build guide in here, just overall like covering the champion. Into tanks, you want to take Leandry, of course, HV stackers, so overall Ludens if you value mobility and you want to have burst. Then generally speaking, I would, if you feel like the champion does have mana issues, I would recommend it to actually go Archangel stuff second. I'm not 100% sure what to say about Archangel stuff, if it's even builded. I think if you spare your mana and you don't perma spam your kit, I think you should be fine, because his wave clear should be decent enough. This is like one thing I'm gonna check up before I say something bullshit, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure like later on if you will have mana issues just because of your E. So I don't suppose, right? Like I don't suppose do people even build it? Do people not build it? I'm not sure. People are seemingly not really building. is one Hwei game. So people are not. I don't suppose he has that many mana issues then. I don't suppose, because Yuri already provides you mana, so I don't want to say anything bullshit, I don't feel like. So second, so usually go a mythic of your choice depending on your game. Second, you go Horizon more than often, just because you don't generally most of your abilities don't reveal the enemy champions, so this will actually help you a lot. Alternatively, do this. What else would you go for? Bench Hizonye, of course, in specific games. Um, from the other hand, for utility and mobility, you can go for Cosmic Drive. It does provide cooldown, it does provide mobility, so this will generally allow you to have more spammy. You have a bit of a more spammy kit. This in situations where mobility and DPS is valued over the other items. Rebel third is always great. Void stuff, like basically you build it as any other mage. I don't think so there is like a specific thing I should tell you. Lich Bane is generally bad, don't go Morello. It's like any other mage, to be honest. There aren't like specific items that you should build, from my honest opinion. That's why like builds are pretty much the same as any other mage. This isn't like a Nash or Tooth like on Kale or something. It's just like the same as many other mage builds. So that's it for now, guys. Have a nice day. I'm probably gonna sleep after this.